In this video, I'm going to be going over my top 3 major oil stocks that I think have the most potential for growth and why you should invest in them right now. What's up, Musketeers? It's your commander here, and if you're new to this channel, you can actually subscribe down below and give us a follow right up there if you want to stay up to date on all things oil stock investing. This is the place where we teach you how to save money, invest it properly, and have success in doing that. Now, just a little disclaimer, I am not a CPA or a financial advisor, but I have been looking at oil stocks for some time now, and I honestly think that they have huge potential, especially if you're looking for stocks for your Roth IRA or just to invest into. So let's take a look at some charts and see what our number 3 stock looks like. Okay, so here we have ExxonMobil, which is a very popular oil and gas company in the United States and across the world. And on Google here, we can actually see that the price today is $38.50. It's, changing a little bit. That happens all the time. And we can actually look at the price of this stock over the last 6 months, the year, and we can actually see that during the initial lockdown, when they basically shut down everything, the price of this stock went all the way down, like super fast, and then it kind of rebounded a little bit, went up to about $55 around there, and then it came back down, and you can actually see that it's kind of on the lower end right now. Now if we actually look at this on a wider time frame, let's go all the way out to the maximum time frame, you can actually see that this stock has been around for a long time, basically 40 years. So this is a long-lasting, very strong stock, ExxonMobil that is. And we can see here that the price went all the way up until 2008, where it crashed back down, and then it started going all the way up again, and then it came back down, and now it's all the way down, as we said, $38.54. Now if we look at this low here, or this previous high I should say, back in the 90s and early 2000s, they thought that this was a previous high here, right? But now it's come all the way down to here, and it's actually going up against this area here. So we can actually see that this is a pretty interesting area here. If we could draw a line across from this point to this point, we can see it's a pretty interesting area, and we actually see that it's bouncing on that area, and it's probably looking to go up and rebound to who knows how high. So that's why I think this stock has a lot of potential. Even though the price, you might think it's a bit high, it's actually at a really good position to rebound and go all the way up. The dividend yield is pretty high as well too, 9.04%. That's pretty good, especially when compared with other stocks, especially smaller oil and gas companies. Okay, so here we have ExxonMobil's revenue over the last 20 years. You can actually see here that they started off at $208 billion around there, and then they steadily climbed year after year all the way up to about $460 billion. Wow, that's some insane numbers right there. And then there was a crash, of course. Everyone remembers, 2008, probably the craziest time in modern history besides this current year. But we saw that the revenue was actually able to increase back up to previous highs, and then it came crashing all the way down 2016, and now it climbed back up, and now we're looking at about $255.5 billion. So ExxonMobil has actually been very good at performing in terms of gaining revenue, increasing their revenue, and all around just increasing their sales over the last 20 years. So we just looked at Exxon's price today, their price performance as well over the last 30 something years, and we also looked at their revenue. But those aren't all the information that we need to actually understand this stock and understand this company. And whether we really want to invest into something like this, what we also need to do is we need to look at whether this company is hiring constantly, how it actually performed in terms of the number of jobs, and are there any future business deals coming for Exxon? Let's take a look. Okay, so now in terms of jobs, Exxon has actually been employing a lot of people over the last 20 years. They have almost 75,000 employees. Now, it is expected that they may do some cutting back with respect to this. If we actually look at their Wikipedia page, you can actually see that they still have that 74 to 75,000 employee mark. And they have a lot of subsidiaries all over the world, and each of these subsidiaries are actually pretty big divisions on their own. So these are some things that you definitely want to look at. Look, they have companies in Nigeria, Australia. They even have an expansion going on in other countries as well. In fact, let's take a look at that now. They actually have expansions going on in the Gulf Coast, but this is actually on hold due to the events of this year. The Gulf Coast refinery. So this is a big project, multi-billion-dollar project. You're looking at like $5 billion they're going to spend on this right here. And this is in its Beaumont refinery in Texas. There is also an expansion going on in let's see here in Haiphong. Haiphong is actually in Vietnam, and Exxon is actually doing a natural gas power plant over there, and this is a huge project as well, $5.09 billion, and it's going to be built in 2 phases. It should come on stream in the coming years. So we can actually see that Exxon has some really big projects coming on within the coming years. We can also see that they are constantly in the news, always being one of the top spoken about companies, one of the top spoken about stocks. And oh, we actually have here that article, the Guyana oil rush, and what's actually going on with respect to that. This is an area of big debate, big controversy, but it actually works to the benefit of the company. This is something that you definitely want to keep your eyes on. Okay, so moving on to our number 2 spot for major oil stocks that you should invest in is actually a company that I really love. In fact, if I had to choose a company that I would want to work for, this would be my number 1 choice. It is the largest oil and gas company in the world by revenue, and you might be thinking, well, Musketeer Commander, why is it the number 2 choice? Well, let's take a look at the charts and you'll actually see why. Alright, Musketeers, so here we have my favorite company to work for, Royal Dutch Shell on the New York Stock Exchange. The price today is $36.70. And again, we're viewing it on Google, and we've seen that over the last month or so, there has been a very steep increase in this stock, and especially since around election time, the US election that is, it really jumped up. You can actually take a look at this on the maximum time frame, and the lowest it has ever been was around $21, which is where it actually crashed down to at the beginning of the lockdown. But it has shot up, it has gone up, but not all the way, as there is still some sort of time that you can actually get into this one. You can actually see here that at $36.72, we're expecting it to double within, basically, it can double within a 6-year period, but you're looking at 6, 10, even 15 years for this to actually double in price. But the dividend yield, when you actually look at the dividend yield, it's actually 3.67%. Now I'm actually expecting that to go down as time goes along, but maybe next year or the year afterwards, I'm expecting it to go up. Reason being is because I know this year there was a lot of turbulence, a lot of unexpected things happening. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So I'm expecting this to go down a bit, but in the future I do expect it to go up incredibly. So if you're looking at adding this to your Roth IRA, you're looking to buy this, hold it, and then sell it in the future, you can definitely look at these options here. Now, we are seeing, if you actually look at it here on the 6-month time frame, we are seeing that it came up very strongly, but I do suspect that it will drop back down, come down this way. So in the 5-year time frame, it came back up, but I do think it will drop down dramatically. And when it drops down dramatically, that's where I expect to see a really nice uptrend, a really nice upward movement. So the best times really were actually when it came down like $21, $24, but I do expect it to come back down to about $30, maybe even $25, and then shoot all the way up. Now, in terms of revenue, Shell has a very good track record when it comes to revenue. We're seeing on average they do about $300 billion a year, and they actually went all the way up to about $458 billion. Came down a bit into 2019. We're seeing the low points were basically major incidents. For example, the 2008 financial crisis right here, and then it went all the way back up, came up to $470 billion. Then it slowly came down. This was with respect to the price wars within Russia and Saudi Arabia, and then it came back up here as well gradually, but it definitely came back up, solidified at 2019. We're going to see the report for 2020, early 2021, but this stock is very strong. The company is very strong as well. Okay, Musketeers, so I know what you guys are thinking. Why isn't Shell the #1 stock on my list, especially since it's my favorite company to actually work for? Well, the truth is there's a lot going on with respect to this company. As we're seeing here, Shell is constantly in the news as well too, in so many different websites. But let's take a look at some of the more prominent things that's going on with the company. And let's start with the bad news first. Shell is actually in court, or at least they're going to begin with a case in court for climate change activists. Big surprise here. It's quite often for, climate change activists to actually go against oil and gas companies, energy companies, but wow, look at all of them. Looks like a bunch of hippies, to be honest. But let's take a look and see what their argument is. Well, it's 7 environmental organizations, 17,000 Dutch citizens, and they want Shell to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions by 45% by the year 2030 compared with 2019 levels. Very interesting. Shell actually has an initiative as well to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions. They're very good at producing liquid natural gas, or LNG. So much so, and this is the good news here, so much so that BHP, another oil and gas company, another huge, massive, major oil and gas company, actually contracted Shell to fuel their iron ore vessels with LNG. That's right, one oil and gas company contracted another oil and gas company to actually fuel themselves. Reason being is because, and you can actually read it right here, BHP LNG fuel vessels are forecast to help BHP reduce, see that there? Reduce CO2 emissions by 30% on a per voyage basis, ultimately contributing to their 40%, look at that there, 40% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by 2030. I guess the hippies really need to understand the impact that liquid natural gas has on the environment and how it's actually a lot better to use, and why we shouldn't put companies in court when they're trying to do the right thing. Added to that is actually one of the projects that started this year. More good news. This project actually started towards the beginning of the lockdown. Shell actually started their $6.4 billion Australian natural gas project, or Project Arrow. Yes, this is one of Australia's biggest projects ever. It actually started earlier this year, and this is set to actually begin operations in the coming years. And this is a huge project, $6.4 billion. First phase will mean 200 additional jobs, and we should see people out in the field around August, September of this year. Wow. Even with the pandemic, even with the, issues that we had this year, they're still hopeful. And they're still pretty much on point as far as gaining progress and expanding their company. So yeah, again, Shell constantly in the news, constantly doing a lot of different things, and sometimes it may be a little bit unfortunate. I do think that Shell will win this case and they will have it thrown out of court, but they are having a lot of really good luck with respect to business as well too. BHP, wow, an excellent company. I might even do a video on BHP in the future, so look out for that, Musketeers. Alright, Musketeers, I'm glad that you've made it this far. We're now down to our number one spot, our top 3 major oil stocks that you should invest into. Now, the reason why I chose this stock is because it has a very high dividend yield, about 6% on average, and it also has the potential to double, maybe even triple in the coming years. Now, I know what you're asking, Commander, what stock has that potential that's one of the major oil companies and you would actually recommend investing to? Well, I'll give you a hint. It's actually a British stock. Yeah, the British. The country that actually has time to sip some tea and all of that. Alright, let's look at this stock's chart and you'll see what I'm talking about. Alright, Musketeers, this is my number one oil stock that you should invest into and that I think has the greatest potential for earnings in the future, both as a capital gains investment and as a dividend investment. It is BP, or British Petroleum. This is a major company. It's one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the world. It's one of the 7 super majors as well. And today's price is actually $21 thereabout. And we can actually see here that even at the beginning, when the stock first came out, which was late 1994, the price was almost identical to today's price. So we can actually see that this is the lowest this stock will more than likely ever be. You can actually see that it gradually increased over the years. There was a dot-com bubble right around here and it came down. Then it went all the way up and came down during the 2008 financial crisis, came all the way down here, and then it basically evened off for a period of time, but has never been so low in previous history. Now, BP is a massive company. It has $282 billion in revenue. That's a lot of money. You can actually take a look at them on their Wikipedia page as well. And on the Wikipedia page, we can see here that they have a lot of different subsidiaries as well. Let me actually scroll down. We're gonna look for so we're gonna look at their operations by location. They have operations in the United Kingdom, the US, and many other countries as well. This is a huge company, and it has been performing very well over the last few years. Also, and very important, is looking at the revenue of the company over these years. So we're actually seeing back in 03, it was $171 billion, went all the way up and doubled basically to $361 billion. Even last year it was very high. So we can actually see it after the dot-com bubble. It went up, came down during the financial crisis, 2008, and then it came back up super quickly, came back down to 2016, and then it went up very quickly. Now, we do have a serious issue with respect to events and the virus for 2020, but I definitely think that from what we're seeing here, we're gonna see a huge spike going all the way up and a very strong
bull market coming in for the next decade, maybe even longer.
Now, when we actually compare BP with our previous stocks like Shell and Exxon, one of the things that we actually saw was that BP is actually pushing towards more renewable energy projects, and they're actually diversifying and investing their money into a lot of different areas, not just in oil, but majorly in liquid natural gas, hydrogen plants, and a lot of different things. In fact, let's take a look at the news and you'll actually see what I'm talking about.
So Musketeers, you want to know what's actually happening with respect to BP in the news? Of course, they are very, very popular online and in the news. There's always a story coming out with respect to these big oil and gas companies. And we can actually see here that on Motley Fool, which is one of the very, very popular stock and financial education websites, you're actually seeing here that they did a comparison between ExxonMobil and BP. It wasn't very in-depth, but they did acknowledge that BP has a very good plan to shrink its oil production and focus on better quality assets. Now, what is a better quality asset? More than likely, they're referring to cleaner energy, which is liquid natural gas and also solar and wind power, which are pretty popular these days. Also too, we can actually see on Off-Grid Energy, their website, that BP has also did a partnership to create renewable hydrogen within Germany. This is major news. It happened just a few weeks ago, and this project could be operational by 2024. This is absolutely huge because we're actually seeing BP is diversifying as much as possible, and very recently we're actually seeing here that BP actually went up 30.75%. Probably even more to come in the coming years and coming decades, but this is the stock that you definitely want to be in. BP should definitely be a stock that you should look into.
Alright, Musketeers, so that's it for our top 3 major oil stocks that you should invest into. And which one of them do you think has the most potential for growth? Is it Exxon with their super high dividends? Is it Shell with their strong track record and strong business portfolio? Or is it BP that actually has the potential to double, even triple in the coming years? Let me know in the comments below. Also too, if you found this video helpful, you can actually subscribe down below and give us a follow if you're viewing on Facebook or Instagram. Well, Musketeers, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is your commander signing out.